Earlier we saw that from a distance, a brick hut looks like one big smooth thing. But up close we can see that a brick hut is made of smaller bricks. From a distance, a beach looks like one big smooth thing. But up close we can see that a beach is made of lots of smaller sand grains. Sand grains are the building blocks of the beach. But what is a building block itself made of? What is a sand grain made of? Is it made of anything smaller? Check out the video. From a distance, a beach looks like one big smooth thing. But if we look at it through a telescope, we can magnify it and make it look bigger. Then we can see that the beach is not smooth at all, and it's not a single thing. It's made of a lot of little sand grains. The beach is nothing but all the little sand grains put together. A beach can be made of 1,000 trillion sand grains. It's an example of a big thing being made of lots of little things. We could say that the sand grains are the basic building blocks of the beach. Can you think of another example where a big thing is made of a lot of little things put together? Pause if you want some time to think about that. How about a forest made of a lot of trees? Here's a forest up close. And here's a forest on a distant mountain. Is this Lego parrot just one thing? Is this hut on the hill just one thing? Or made of smaller things? We can say that the bricks are the basic building blocks of the hut, or that sand grains are the basic building blocks of the beach. But are bricks or sand grains themselves made of anything smaller? To answer this question, we can magnify a sand grain to see what it's made of. Scientists magnify really small things using a microscope, which will make the sand grain look bigger. The most powerful kind is called an electron microscope, which can make things look millions of times bigger. So let's use that. Our scientist puts some sand under the microscope, and now she looks through the top to see the magnified sand. This is what she sees. And now she's zooming in more. Magnifying the sand grain 1,000,000 times would let her see the sand's building blocks. Wow, look at those. These marble-shaped particles are the building blocks of the sand. They're called atoms. The word atom means uncuttable. And if you imagine that we had a very sharp knife, we could cut the sand into smaller and smaller pieces, but we couldn't make it smaller than an atom because this is the sand's smallest piece. A tiny sand grain is made of 10 million trillion atoms. This means that there are more atoms in a grain of sand than there are grains of sand in a beach. Atoms must be incredibly small. There are two kinds here. The red ones are oxygen and the grey ones are silicon atoms. By the way, we just made them these colours so we could tell them apart. They aren't really red and grey. The atoms aren't alive, and they're not inside the sand grain. They are the sand grain, only seen at a smaller scale. The sand grain is nothing but the oxygen and silicon atoms put together. We just saw that a sand grain is made of atoms. The photo of the sand grain on the left shows us what we can see and feel. We don't need a microscope for this, so this is the macroscopic view of the sand grain. Macro means big. The diagram on the right shows the atoms that make up the sand grain. These are too small to see with our eyes, so we need a really powerful microscope to make them visible. This is the microscopic view of the sand grain. Micro means small. Let's look at the sand grain's atoms again. What are they called? Ah, that's right. Oxygen and silicon. Do you remember the hut? What were its building blocks again? Bricks. If we could magnify a brick, we would see that it's also made of atoms. It's got silicon and oxygen atoms, but other kinds like hydrogen, aluminium, iron, calcium, sodium, potassium, magnesium, titanium, and sometimes there's a bit of sulfur there too, which can be a nuisance. What a substance is like depends upon what atoms it's made of and how they're arranged together. Wow, that's a lot of different kinds. Take a look at their names. We're going to remove them now and see how many you can remember. Okay, let's go. How many names of the different atoms can you remember? Did you remember sulfur, oxygen, potassium, sodium, aluminium, silicon, magnesium, calcium, hydrogen, iron, or titanium? So just like a sand grain, a brick is made of atoms. And a sand grain is made of atoms. So atoms are the basic building blocks of both a brick and a sand grain. In fact, Atoms are the basic building blocks of everything. Here's a tricky question. Is air made of atoms? Air seems to be just empty space, and it doesn't seem to have any weight. You can't see it or feel it. The Airzuka shows that air can push you with a force, and you can feel the air atoms hitting you. Moving air can even push over a tree. Air is made of atoms.